Well, hey everybody, and welcome to the Entrepreneur Motivation Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Bello, and I'm really excited to bring you Hamza today. Hamza, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself for my audience.
Yeah. Hey guys, this is Hamza. I have the honor basically of being with Chris on this podcast, and I'm very excited to tell you guys all about my entrepreneurial experience, which has been about 5 years here in Houston, Texas.
And Hamza's story is really incredibly inspiring. It really is a testament to the power of the entrepreneurial dream, setting a goal and acting on that. So I can't wait to dive in a little bit on your story. If you want, we can go ahead and get started with what made you decide to kind of pursue the American dream. Like, what made you realize that this is where you wanted to go?
So I moved here in 2014 from Dubai, and Dubai, I guess, was a completely different experience for me than Houston, Texas.
Yeah.
But you know what? When I came here, I saw a lot of opportunity. There was a lot of opportunity for somebody like me to kind of come here and really grow.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, let's just open up the camera.
Yeah.
So a lot of opportunity for you to come over here and grow.
A lot of opportunity for a foreigner basically to come to the U.S. and grow, and I basically noticed that very quickly and jumped right, with both feet in very aggressively. And 5 years later, I'm very glad that, I took that risk.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what was it that you said? I think you had some family who lived here. Is that correct? And you were visiting, or?
Yeah. So initially when I came to the U.S., I went to where most people go, which is California.
Yep.
I quickly realized that California was a very expensive city to live in and do business in. And their construction law was very, very complicated at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I had an aunt who lived in Katy, Texas, and she was a teacher. And she called me and she said, "Hamza, why don't you come to Katy, Texas?" And for someone who is coming from Dubai, it was very difficult to fathom, that you're going to go from Dubai to Katy, Texas.
Yeah.
But that's what I did. I got on a plane, came to Katy, Texas. The whole area there was under construction and being built, and there was a whole kind of vision
for the community, right?
For the community and the growth, yeah. And what I've come to learn is that you follow the rooftops. So there were thousands and thousands of homes being built in that area, and what that meant was that the commercial stuff was just gonna, increase, and there was a lot of growth. These people were gonna need commercial services,
Right.
So I stuck around, bought a piece of land, and invested in Katy, Texas, and that's
So is that where the first commercial that put you on the map, right? That we were talking about?
Absolutely. So that was the first project I ever built. I bought this piece of land, 4 acres. I remember I paid $1 a square foot for it or something.
Wow.
And by the time I was done with that project literally put me on the map. I built 66,000 square feet of office warehouse development on that.
How long did that take you?
That took me from start to finish. And when I say from start to finish, I literally built that ground up. So I took permitting, construction, management, and then sale. I sold that asset last year. It took me 4 years.
Okay, to do everything, to do the ground up and sell it. So at that point, I guess when you sold it, did you have a pretty high occupancy rate? You'd already leased out units to multiple businesses?
So I had the property occupied at 93% occupancy, which is very high, which is very high for that type of product. I think the current landlord has it a little lower just because he's not managing the way I did, but I really took care of that project. And I had an office there on site, so I used to go to my office warehouses every day, sit there, manage from on site, listen to what my tenants had to say, and I guess that's what kept the occupancy of that product to where it was when I sold it.
Right.
Yeah.
So I imagine when most people come into play, like the guy you sold it to, probably he might be looking at this part-time, right? He's not on site, so of course the occupancy slipped a little bit since you were there on site.
Absolutely. So my buyer, the guy who bought the property from me, Matthew, interesting story. He's actually out of California.
Okay.
And he is liquidating his assets in California to invest here in Houston, Texas.
Wow.
And he has committed to buying another one of our properties, which is a little larger. Okay. And it seems like he's not too worried about cap rates right now, because I think his main focus is liquidating those assets in California and just moving the money to Texas.
Because he'll be able to buy much more with the same amount of capital out there.
Exactly. I'm assuming he was at a negative cap in California.
I would believe it. And Houston's still projected to grow. I saw some numbers that somebody posted, because I'm sure you're in all these real estate groups like I am, and people share various statistics and articles. I can't remember the exact number, but I think someone was saying that in the next 2 years, there's supposed to be 2 million more people moving in here, greater Houston area.
Absolutely. So yeah, you're right. I mean, Houston is definitely a growing market.
Yeah.
Since then, since that office warehouse project, we've acquired about 7 multifamily assets.
Wow.
And I can tell you that our occupancy is over 92% in each one of them.
Yeah, people need a place to live. That's one realization that made me want to go into real estate, because I tried doing some things like flipping phones. I know people need phones. Like if you break your phone today, you're going to buy another phone, or you're going to fix the phone because you need it to do anything, to call people, to get on Facebook, to make a video, to make an Instagram post like we did before. And then I realized that, looks like the video froze for a second. Okay, and then I realized that people also need houses. They need places to live. No matter how the economy is doing, they're going to need a place to rent.
Mm-hmm. So you're absolutely right, Chris, on that. And what I can tell you is that since we've left the office warehouse business space, we no longer have to run after tenants.
Mm-hmm.
What happens is we get enough drive-by traffic on each one of our properties, and we use the referral process.
Okay.
And that helps our occupancy stay at over 92% over all our assets.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a really great occupancy rate.
Yeah.
So how did you find your current investor
Base.
Well, I guess the investor who bought this property from you, how
Yes.
did you market it? Did you just list it online, or?
Well, so every time I want to sell a property, I pick what I would like to think as the best broker for that asset class.
Okay.
And for these office warehouses at the time, I had partnered up with Marcus and Milchat.
Oh yeah.
Because they have a very strong California-based presence.
Mm-hmm.
And what I was hearing is there's a lot of people out of California who want to invest in Houston, Texas. So I approached them, and they actually had an investor lined up. So that property did not sit on the market for more than, I would say, 60 days. They had it on a contract.
Wow.
And it was a guy out of California, just like they had promised. And yeah, that's the rest is history, I guess.
So that was the project that you first saw success with, and kind of gave you a little bit of the runway to dive into the other multifamily stuff?
Absolutely. So that is the project that built my self-confidence.
Yeah.
Once I had it under contract, I couldn't believe that, I had completed a ground-up development, managed it for like 2 years, increased rents, negotiated contracts, and then sold.
That's amazing.
And after that, I decided, multifamily is where I want to be.
So when you were doing this entire project, did you have any partners or anything, or were you just Googling, finding out answers, learning from the ground up? Because I would imagine for those 4 years, you were basically, this was your full-time gig, and you weren't really making other money, right?
Yes, I was not making other money. I will tell you this though. We have a team of 18 people today, and I built that over 4 years because I identified that if I wanted to grow this business, I could not do it alone.
Alone, right?
So 18 people, we have about, I would say, 8 property managers, and then the rest of them are all in-office staff. But point being that building the team is something that I identified very early on that I need to do in order to grow this business and scale it, because this was the business that I wanted to be in long term.
Right. And how has hiring been for you? I know entrepreneurs, they get into hiring, they might hire too quickly, they hire the wrong people, when to fire. Have you had a lot of those issues you've had to work through?
I have absolutely had those issues. So for a person, you have to understand, for a person coming from Dubai and hiring in the US, it's a completely different process. It's a completely different mindset.
Right.
There are issues that we face here that are unheard of in the Middle East. And I had to deal with each and every one of those at different capacities. So I can tell you that I definitely hired the wrong people to manage properties for and I've made a lot of mistakes with the hiring and firing process as well, which I'm much more aware of and conscious of right now. So before we hire, we go through a much more rigorous screening process than we used to. Prior to this, I guess when I first started, if I like the person, first interview, that's it, you're hired.
Yeah.
And then, they show up, 1 week is good, and the next week is
they're coming in late, right.
So,
and that's kind of hard to tell too, off the bat, I guess, unless you have references and you're starting to call 3 people that they worked with before versus their friends who they say they've worked with.
Yeah. So now we go through the full process. We take time. There's a 90-day onboarding process at the company.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we want to make sure that we have the absolute best of the best. And
so after the 90 days, they either get a full offer or they're kind of let go and just paid for the time.
Yes, absolutely. So after 90 days is really when we commit.
Okay, that's a really good process actually, because you get a chance to see how do you like working with them, do they fit in with the culture and everything.
Yeah, and as of recent, we've also started onboarding partners. So that's a whole separate challenge. It's a whole separate opportunity as well, and that's something that we are learning to do now as we grow.
Right.
Yep.
And that's good. I mean, as you go through mistakes and the headaches, you start to learn, and you know not to make those same mistakes next time. And I guess it's all part of the growth and the opportunities that you come up with.
Absolutely. So as part of the growth, the first thing I did is I identified my weaknesses.
Okay.
And
what do you think your biggest weaknesses were?
My biggest weaknesses, I believe, are I'm very good. So first, I'll go with my strengths.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm very good at getting new business. I like business development.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good at operations, so I can do ops. I'm not too good with following up with existing clientele.
Okay, like servicing the current customers.
Yes, so that is a big weakness of mine, and that is because I'm spending too much time either getting new clients or I'm diving deep into operations of the business, making sure that we have the returns that we promised our investors we were going to have. What happens in this process is I don't have enough time to now communicate with my existing either clients or investors.
Right.
So I identified that very early on as a weakness. So we actually have 2 people now that handle that for us in the business.
Okay, so that frees you.
And they actually do a better job than I would ever do, right?
I hear that a lot where once you outsource to somebody whose sole task is to take care of something like customer service, they do a better job than you would. In any case, it's not something that you love to do, so it works out. It's a win-win.
It's a win-win, absolutely. I agree. I truly believe they do a much better job than I do, and because we have to hit quarterly targets. So they're right
hitting that. Yeah. Well, because the thing that happens is when you're trying to do it all on your own, and I've had this issue too. Even though I don't really have a team, I have a virtual assistant, and I kind of delegate as much as I can. At this point, I haven't committed to having the overhead yet, but I've noticed that once I delegate other things and you give people free reign, they do a better job than me. I don't have to do something that I don't want to work on, and I can focus on the stuff that I love to do.
Absolutely. I think once you truly find what you really love to do, that's it. I think it's much more cost effective, time efficient to actually delegate or outsource that task.
Right, and it's kind of a mindset shift that you have to go through, because sometimes people are trying to save money in so many areas that they want to do everything on their own, but then they don't realize that they're stretching themselves thin, they're wasting time doing things that is taking them 3 times longer than it would if they just hired someone who's good at that. And it's something that I think once you realize how much more time you can free up, then you realize what it's really worth to you.
Absolutely. So to me, my time, exactly, when my time is freed up, that means I can go out and do my thing and get more business into the company.
Right.
And that's what I truly love doing.
And that generates more money too.
Absolutely.
While you have your people servicing the current clients.
Absolutely.
So other than that, what's been one of the biggest challenges that you guys have faced over the last few years?
I think over the last 2 years, the biggest challenge that we faced is our pipeline, our existing pipeline.
Okay.
So, I mean, as a wholesaler, you know that, you have to keep...
You've got to have constant deal flow.
You have to have constant deal flow. And with us, what has happened is we've been lucky enough to where we have more investor commitment than we do have deals.
Mm-hmm.
So every deal that we bring out to the market, we've been oversubscribed.
Right.
What that means is that we're not bringing enough deals to the market, right?
It's a good problem to have, though, for you to be able to move those deals, I guess, but that means that you're leaving money on the table, too.
Are. Well, not only are we leaving money on the table, we can't help people invest their money in the right things.
Right.
And that is kind of what we want to make sure that we're doing. And so I think over the past 2 years, that has been my biggest struggle to sourcing the deals that meet our company criteria and that can give returns to the investors to where it's promising enough, to move forward.
Yeah, the team that I worked with before too, when I was doing wholesaling with them, they're based out of the Heights, and they have an investment fund as well. And that was the problem that they had, is they had very rigorous criteria of what they wanted to return, but that was contingent on them finding the deals, which of course you don't want to buy a deal for the sake of buying it. You want to make sure it meets your criteria. And of course, if you're trying to hit those returns, your criteria is probably a little more strict than the random investor who's just looking for one deal every 6 months.
Yep. So It's exactly what you said, Chris. So our criteria is very, very strict.
Or a really good deal to another investor, you would still pass on because it doesn't hit those numbers.
We would, and we're not gonna just buy any deal because we have the money.
Right.
We're gonna hold off even if we have to wait a little longer to find the right product.
Okay, so that's been the hardest thing, deal flow. And I guess what steps have you taken in order to try to address that? Have you been trying to develop new relationships where you can be the first one to get deals sent your way?
So most of our deals are off market.
Okay.
And so we do have very strong relationships. It's just that we have a lot of players now in the same space. The market is a little saturated. So what have we done? What have we done to address this? What we've done is that we're now looking at secondary markets with higher caps.
Okay.
Maybe less players. We are looking at other markets outside of Houston. So
really?
yes. So we're looking at
mainly
Dallas.
Mainly in Texas, I would imagine.
Only in Texas, right?
Okay.
As of right now. So we're looking at the Dallas market. We're looking at the Austin market. And we are aggressively looking at all secondary markets. In fact, we just purchased a deal in Alvin, Texas, and the return on that deal is going to be phenomenal once we're done, with the rehab portion of it. It was like, I want to say it was like a 46 unit apartment community.
Okay.
And it is actually our top performer as of cash flow and
really
occupancy right now. Yes, absolutely.
Wow, and I'm sure it's much less competitive as well than trying to find something here in the heart of Houston.
Yeah, which is why we decided to go to Alvin, right?
Yeah.
We thought that the Houston market at the time was very competitive, and there was no product that met our criteria. We looked outside, and guess what? We found something in Alvin, Texas.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So when you were looking for that product in Alvin, were you getting that off market from local investors out there or local brokers, I guess, or?
So the Alvin deal was an off market deal. It was bought. I got it through a local broker in Houston who called me up and said, "Hey, I have this guy in Alvin, and he actually owns a bunch of stuff in Houston, but he wants to sell his Alvin deal. Would you be interested?" I was like, "Absolutely. If it meets my criteria, I'm done." I was at that deal within 1 hour of him calling me.
That's how you have to do it.
Yeah.
If it looks like a good deal, you got to be the first one to go there because it's going to disappear.
So I think we put that deal under contract the same day.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's the best when you develop those relationships and you get that phone call. I was recently at a listing I think it was last week, because I know it was the day right before we had all the flooding in Houston. Yeah. And I was the first person that this agent called. She said she had an off-market property. It didn't need a whole lot of work, so there wasn't much equity in it. But it was really cool to be the first person to have access to that and send it to 4 or 5 of my buyers before she put it up on the market. We weren't able to offer enough for it to make sense for everybody involved, so they listed it on the MLS, but it was still cool to have that first right of refusal or whatever, like you call it, right? So
yeah, absolutely. You want to be that first call.
Exactly.
On everybody's, speed dial, basically.
Yeah, and if you're able to buy enough of those deals where they realize how easy it is working with you, they're going to be the first to call you every time.
Yeah, so absolutely. And what we do is when we put stuff under contract, we close on every deal that we put under contract.
Yeah, you don't want to waste time and back out, and absolutely. That's good.
So we do our due diligence even before we put stuff under contract. So if we hear something's potentially coming on the market, we'll go in, we'll go do all the due diligence.
Inspections, everything.
We'll shop it as if we were tenants.
Okay.
Right? We'll go send in our roofer, we'll go send in our foundation guy, we'll go send in our exterior guy, and kind of do, I would say 70% of the due diligence even before we put anything under contract. So once it's under contract, now it's a done deal. It's a done deal.
That's good, because I know, especially in the market that I come from, where there's a lot of wholesalers, some of them don't know their numbers. They get things under contract at the wrong price point. They don't know how much stuff really costs to repair, and they're wasting a lot of time, because then sellers get pissed off because you just tied up their contractor in their house for 2 or 3 weeks, and now you're backing out because you couldn't find another buyer.
Exactly.
So that's really, really good for your reputation. Whenever you put something under contract and you actually perform, people will be more willing to send you more deals.
Absolutely, and that's been our thing. So now when we get calls, the reason we get those calls is that they know if Hamza puts it, or if Gracefield Capital puts it under contract,
it's a done deal.
It's a done deal. We're closing.
Yeah.
Right, and I think that's the level of aggressiveness you need to have if you know that it's the right deal and it meets your criteria.
Right.
If there's no reason for you to back down, then just go with it.
And go all in.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, what has been one of your favorite moments, other than that first win that kind of put you on the map and gave you that confidence? Have you had any other big wins where you've said, like, this has been one of the most exciting days of my business so far?
So I think another win of mine is that I bought a multi-family unit apartment community. It was 24 units in Pasadena.
Okay.
At the time, I was very new to the Houston market, so I didn't know really what a good neighborhood or a bad neighborhood looked like.
I know where this is going.
And so I got stuck in a very bad neighborhood, I'll tell you that. And this 24 unit at the time was probably the toughest property management that I had to do ever.
Just the tenants, the quality of the tenants and everything.
Collecting rent was difficult. Dealing with the tenants was very difficult. But you know what? I made the best out of it. We rehabbed that whole deal. Got some really good tenants in there. It was a lot of work. It was way more work than I had initially anticipated for 24 units, because it's such at that time, 24 units was a good start, but it's still a small deal. Right? It was very challenging. And I think what came out of it is that I got most of my learning through a 24 unit apartment community, right? So that was my education into the multifamily space here in Houston. And I'm really grateful actually that I did that and that I had a hard time. What it taught me is that now I know exactly how to deal with every situation, right? Mm-hmm. Although I'm not dealing with it personally anymore, but when my property managers are talking to me, I can understand what they're saying because I've been through it. Yeah. Exactly. So I have that first-hand experience.
And that's important, because if you are the person who's running the show and you haven't been there and done that, people won't really be able to come to you with problems, because you're just going to say, you should just be able to solve this. This is the answer. But now you actually know the answer because you understand the challenges that they're going through firsthand.
Absolutely. So, if a property manager comes to me and they're in trouble and they're like, okay, we have this thing and we need to do it and this is the timeline, sometimes I have the right vendor for them.
Yes.
Because I've been there.
So you save them the headache of finding the vendor. Right. You already have your short list, right?
Absolutely.
That's awesome. And that only comes with time, I think, too, and experience. You have the contractor who screws you over, and then you have the good experience where you say, okay, I'm going to keep this guy's business card for next time.
Yes.
When I need the job done right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've had a lot of bad experiences.
Yeah.
And some good ones.
That's good.
So I keep the sum, in my Rolodex for sure.
Right. And that's one of the biggest issues that I keep seeing, even with new investors for single family or whatever it is that they're doing. They'll hire the wrong contractor because it's a cheaper bid. And it ends up coming to bite them because the person underbid it just to get the work, and they can't perform.
Absolutely. So that's something that is actually a very big issue for us right now.
Yeah.
And we see it, I would say, on a weekly basis, to where
contractors just bidding too low.
Contractors are bidding too low, and we've actually had to go back to contractors and tell them, hey, we want to use you, we like you guys, but your bid is too low. You need to figure out what you're missing and come back to us. And more often than not, they'll figure out what they were missing, and then the bid will be adjusted, and we may actually go with them.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's good. But also when you're doing these big commercial deals, I would imagine that if you miss one little thing, multiply it times the square footage for carpet, paint, or whatever, it adds up very quickly.
It adds up very quickly. So right now, we have a project that we're building, new construction in Missouri City. Okay. And we've had an issue with the neighbor, to where we need a pipe to be connected into an attachment that's on their lot. Okay. And they're not, and because we don't have permission, we have had to stop work for about a week now.
And they're not wanting you to dig up their.
They want to negotiate something, so obviously they want to be compensated, which is fair, right? It's just that it's taking them too long to decide what that compensation is, and because of that, every day that I don't work and I have to pay for machinery on my site, I'm losing money, right? So these are situations that come up to us, a lot.
All the time. And that's just seeing that money just get burned basically because you're waiting on one bottleneck. That's frustrating.
It is frustrating.
Yeah, I'm feeling the same issue on a personal deal. I have a client who's trying to close on a house, and it's a foreclosure, brand new build. The builder is trying to sue the bank for foreclosing on them, saying that they were wrongfully foreclosed on. And so we have all the documentation that we need, but apparently we need to wait for the judgment or whatever to be issued in court. So my client was hoping to close today or this week, and now we're hearing that he might not be able to for a few months probably until that's resolved. So very similar situation where he's ready. He had the U-Haul ready to go for Friday, and I had to call him today and say, you may not be moving into that house for a few months if you still want it. So little issues like that all the time where somebody drops the ball or someone's not communicative, it can really come back to bite you and everybody involved.
It can. And I think the best remedy for something like that is to be proactive.
Right.
To kind of kind of see any obstacles that might come up even, and assume
bring
that
them
assume they're going to come up, and then try to deal with them ahead of time. That's what we do.
Yeah.
But there's always stuff that we miss here and there.
Yeah, and you learn a lot too, because I had never helped somebody buy a foreclosure home as a house that they want to live in.
Yeah.
I'd been on the investor side where it's like, okay, I know this has issues. It needs a full rehab, plumbing, everything, roofing, foundation. But I've never seen someone who's getting financing and now having these issues and also wanting to move in. So timeline's a little more important there. But like you said, it's always important to get ahead of those issues and let people know of what can possibly go wrong. So it's not as hard to deliver the bad news when you need to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's something that we've done many a time.
Yeah.
On both ends.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess what's one tip that you would give to an aspiring entrepreneur who's wanting to get into real estate or at least get into their own business?
I think the most important tip that I would give any entrepreneur is that it's very easy for us to get caught up with what everybody else is doing.
Right.
And
watching too many YouTube videos.
Watching way too many YouTube videos. I think the best thing, and I will tell you this from personal experience, is that I kept my head down and I worked for 3 years without anybody noticing or knowing who I was. And I put in that time, and I think that is what contributed mainly to any success that I have today.
That's really good advice.
Yes. I think just, do the work, put in the time, keep your head down. We don't need to prove anything to the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
There's plenty of time for that, but that's something that I really truly believe that contributes to success.
Yeah, and now that you've seen some of that success and that growth, now you're starting to focus more on your social media. You said you're trying to grow your YouTube and everything and your content, right?
Absolutely. So now that I've put in 5 years into my business, I decided that it's time for me to start a YouTube channel, get more active on social media, and believe it or not, I think it is a vital component of any business now.
It really is. Yeah.
Looking at you, personally, I follow all your stories and everything, and I think it's very important for anybody to be on social media. I think it's to a point to where it's like a verification check almost on whoever you're doing business with. Yeah.
Because I was actually talking to someone I recently had on the show. Her name was Ginny, and she was saying the same thing. It's like social proof. If you say you do this, and that, and then I go to your Instagram and you have 2 followers and no posts, there's no credibility because anyone can put up a website.
Exactly.
You can do it overnight these days. You can say that you've got some certain credibility or some kind of awards, but how do we really know? Whereas if you've got 200,000 followers, even if you have 20,000 or 2,000, those are 2,000 people that have vouched for you and basically love your content and are willing to follow. And like you said too, we just met and we just followed each other on social media recently, and I've already seen several of your videos. You've seen some of my stories, and it kind of goes into your subconscious where anytime I have a commercial question, you're the guy I will think of, right?
Absolutely, and that's the image that I'm trying to build, right?
Yeah.
So I want to be in people's subconscious. Anytime they think of multifamily real estate,
you come to mind.
They think about me, and that's what I'm trying to do with this platform, and it's all free. That's
the
best part.
Free. It's incredible, and I guess the only wage you have to put in is your sweat equity, right?
Right. Absolutely. It can't. I don't think it can be easier than being on social media. It's just that there's a lot of people that shy away from that even today.
Yeah, people are nervous. The first time that I set up a camera and it was rolling, it felt so weird, especially if we were in this room alone, people walking by and you're just like, hey guys, this is, my name's Chris and the Entrepreneur Motivation Podcast. It's very strange to be that energetic when it's just you and no one else is on the other side of the camera. But I guess it comes with practice and time, because I have a lot of friends who have that issue and they're like, I'm not comfortable in front of the camera. I don't like the way my voice sounds. And I just say, just do it, because you're sharing your message, you're getting your word out there. And no matter what it is you do in life, you have to sell yourself and sell your product, your business, and really what you believe in, right? And so that's what we're doing by sharing our message on social media.
Yeah, absolutely. So, interesting fact, English is not even my first language.
Really?
So, yes, it's not. So I come from the Middle East, right? 5 years, my English, 5 years ago, my English was completely different than it is today, but I had to learn.
Really?
Right? Yeah. And
your English is phenomenal.
And I'm still uncomfortable in front of a camera, by the way. On my YouTube channel, talking to a lens is so awkward, but it's something that I have to do because I've noticed and I realized
to the next level.
That's the only way to get it done.
Right. And it's one thing too, I've noticed from my first videos to now, I'm still working on getting better, but a trick that I like to do is to look at anyone you're inspired by. Even Gary Vaynerchuk, look at his oldest video on YouTube. It's like 7 years old or 9 years old or something. And then look at the newest, and it's a night and day difference between when they're like, hey, this is a Gary Vee show, and then like, all right guys, I'm gonna tell you what's up, and he's on stage, millionaire, invested in great companies. And this is true for any YouTuber, anybody who's seen success or gained followers. They were not good on their first video or their first podcast. It comes with time and practice.
It does, yeah. You have to be consistent.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, sometimes they start being on social media, but they're not consistent. They lose it. And if once you lose it, it's gone. You have to learn it all over again.
Right.
So consistency is key, especially with...
And that's with anything.
Videos, yeah. With videos, consistency is key.
How frequently are you releasing a video now? Multiple times a week, or?
I am trying to release a video multiple times a week.
Okay.
I have not been successful at that yet, because I'm trying to figure out how to. I'm learning the different mechanisms of making a YouTube channel.
Right.
And what I've learned is that you have to put about 1 day of your week in scripting and preparing for the week, basically, and
of the content that you want to post.
And I think that's what I need to kind of put my mindset into right now, where I need to set aside some time where I can script content for the next week and then just shoot it as time goes. That would be much more easier than the way I do it right now.
Right.
Because right now, I just come up with an idea. I think, oh wow, this is a great idea.
Let me record it.
Let me record it, and I'm recording it just while I'm driving my car.
Yeah.
So I don't know how effective that is. In fact, I think that might be dangerous. But you know what? That's the time that I have to do it, right?
Yeah, you're in the car. I mean, I guess ideally in the future when we have the self-driving cars and we don't have to be physically paying attention, that would be amazing to have 30 minutes of commute time in Houston, for example, to actually record a video. Or even some people hire drivers, I guess, like Dan Locke. He does the boss in the Bentley. He's just sitting in the back of the Bentley, like making a video as he's getting chauffeured around town. So I guess that would be the next step too, while we wait for the future to catch up and have self-driving autonomous vehicles.
Absolutely. That's something that I'm actually interested in. I'm looking to kind of mimic that idea to where I have somebody else filming me.
Yeah.
I think I would be more comfortable if I had somebody else filming me and me just being free and able to do what I do.
Right.
But I don't know how realistic that is at this point. I need to get committed fully into the social media world, and then after that, maybe that's something that I can look at.
Yeah, and it seems to be like the step that a lot of influencers take once they get to a certain level. They basically, their first position, like where in real estate, most people will say you need an admin or something of that sort. Most people, I guess, once they get to a certain level on social media, they'll hire a videographer, an editor, someone who can record all their content, edit it all, so that way you can just focus on the fun stuff, making the videos, talking about stuff, and then they worry about all the details. Even I would like to get to that stage. I still do some podcast editing myself. I'd like to get it to the point where I can just send the file to someone on Dropbox and they give me the final version that's cleaned up.
That would be a dream come true. Have you looked at like either Fiverr or Upwork or?
Yeah, I have. I actually, a friend of mine recommended a virtual assistant who's been really good, very talented in multiple areas. And so he's been handling a lot of the things that I've outsourced to him. I've never outsourced anything before this, so I had to create instructions and screenshots and send it over. But I'm still kind of hogging it, right? Because I like to edit it. I know what I want to keep, what I want to delete, what I don't like when I say something in a weird way. Have you considered that at all for your video editing?
I have. I'm actually looking at outsourcing the editing portion of the video because I don't really understand computers and editing and all that. I do it right now on iMovies myself, but I would like them to be a little more professional. Maybe better background music, because I have this one file that I use and that's the only one I have as far as free audio is concerned, right? So I am looking right now, and I think I've contracted with a couple of people on Fiverr, and I want to see how that's going to work out for me. Yeah,
that's good. And one thing that I hear too is people recommend on Fiverr or Upwork, obviously try to test them out. Maybe you could even give them all the same video file and tell them to make the best video that they can with whatever the criteria is. And then sure, you might be paying multiple people, but it's kind of like their interview to see who you're going to really stick around and keep.
Yep. So that is exactly the stage that I'm in right now.
Okay. Yeah. Let me know how that goes. I'd love to know. And I have a few friends who recommend a few videographers that they know, like, and trust. I'm still at the stage where I'm not sure how much I'm willing to pay for that yet, because I'm still growing my following. So it's that chicken and the egg, right? I want to have good content, but I don't know. I don't want to pay for it until I have a certain amount of followers.
I totally understand. With my YouTube channel, I made a promise. I'm not going to buy any gear till I hit 1,000 subscribers.
That's good.
So I'm waiting to get to 1,000 subscribers so I can actually get some real gear, like a real camera, a real mic setup. But until then, I'm just going to use my GoPro and kind of figure it out, So we're kind of in the same boat there.
And I love the scrappiness too, because I mean, now that you've been more successful and you've had projects that have been sold, relatively quickly for commercial deals, most people would just say, whatever, buy the camera right now, but you're still thinking like the scrappy entrepreneur where you're wanting to prove the concept before you spend the money.
Yes, so that is actually a lesson I had to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
And what I've come to learn now is that every business is different.
Right.
Every venture is different, right? So you can't commingle or think about, just because I had one success here,
you can apply it somewhere else.
You can't. Everything needs to start from scratch.
Yeah. That's a really, really good point, because I tell people in my audience as well, and we were talking about it briefly before this, I had filed a patent on an invention with a friend, and I had a good oil and gas job at the time. I had like $60,000 in savings. So I was kind of confident where I was making steady income. I thought I was I still think I'm smart. I like to say that, but I was a little cocky and overconfident where I just put the money in. I put about $40,000 of my own money without really validating the engineering drawings, without making sure that the supplier was competent. And then we had issues on the back end where I was not sure, like even now the problem's been, are these molds that we invested in salvageable, and do we want to pay engineers to basically redesign what we created when I should have done that on the front end, because now I've already put the money in and there's not really a good way to get it out unless we move forward. So I'm moving more towards the red light, green light, where you wait to see if something works and is having some success before you invest more money in it, versus just going with the green light and putting it all in and going all in hardcore, I guess, with your finances.
Yep, and that is something. I guess that is something that is it's a good mindset to be in.
I like to take risks, but sometimes it's like you got to be a little bit realistic too with your money.
Yes, absolutely. You have to be very realistic. Coming from Dubai, we were of a completely different mindset where we would invest the money up front and then wait for the clients to come in. Now everything is checks and balances, systems and processes, right?
Right.
To where we have to be confident that we have enough clients on the front end in order to start a service or a business.
Okay.
So, and that is the mindset that we've had, and I think when you have not invested too much money going in and you have a need for that product, that's a good sign that that the product or the service is going to be very successful. And so that's what we kind of do.
Definitely, because you're kind of validating and getting the demand up front before you put the investment in.
Yeah.
Which is a really good spot to be in.
It's a really good spot. It's challenging also because sometimes the clients are like, "What exactly are we buying? We don't get it."
Right.
So it's I guess it's something that you have to juggle a little bit.
That's awesome. And that's a little bit different in different industries. You can't always have the demand before you have the product, and you're still trying to figure out what the product looks like, right? When you're trying to match the product to your customer, there's a little bit of give and take there, but as you start to figure it out and you start to do more and more, you have a better understanding of what you need on both sides.
Yep. So track record is very important here, right? If you have an existing track record that's good and profitable, going into a new venture, it's very easy for you to capture an audience than it would be if you were just starting fresh.
Right.
And so that is what we bank on right now. Now that our company has built a track record and we have 4 good, excellent years of good acquisitions and sales, we can easily jump into any asset class and be confident that our investors are going to be happy with what we have to offer.
Right.
Yeah.
That's good. So the track record is everything, and I know a lot of people talk about that too. With when you're hiring people, getting references, I guess I never understood why companies did that until I got into the real estate investment world, where I hear so many contractors stealing money, walking away from the job. And that's why a lot of people say when you're about to hire someone that you don't know, you just saw someone tag them on a Facebook post, hey, use this guy. Make sure to get references from people who have recently worked with them so that you can get real customer feedback. Because the problem with a lot of these types of services is they don't really have a Google business page. It's like a one-man show, or they've got a little team, and there's no Google reviews, no Angie's List for some of these people. So you want to make sure that you know who you're getting into business with.
Yeah, absolutely. For us, the way we tackle this is that we drive a lot. Our whole team does, and when we see
like
people
physically drive
the neighborhoods that we're working in.
Okay, so you
right?
get a better understanding.
So we just pick up people that are working jobs that are close to us.
That's a really good tip.
And more often than not, what'll happen is they're working here full time. Either they'll just come on board with us part time to finish what we're doing, or they have enough crews that they can work both projects at the same time. This helps them work faster, and it costs us less money.
Right, because they're already out there. You don't have to pay their round trip fees for them to go to another part of town.
So that's I guess most of how we retain all our vendors.
That's amazing. So you find local people who are already working in that area.
Yeah.
Okay, because I know some people who do the other route where they have their vendors, they send them all over the map where they're driving 40 minutes one way and then 40 minutes the other way the next day.
I mean, of course, if we don't find the person that we're looking for in the area,
you've got to resort to that.
Yeah, we have to.
But whenever you are able to, it makes sense to kind of optimize the logistics for them.
It does. So let me give you an example. Like recently, we are building a 12-acre ground-up development.
Okay.
And we needed, I don't know, like I want to say 60 truckloads full of dirt. And our neighbor, and that's the cost.
That's a lot of dirt.
That costs money, right? And our neighbor, right across from us, dug a detention pond.
Okay.
And they had so much salvageable dirt. And we were like, hey, could we just use this? Like, could you?
And they were probably happy because they wanted to get rid of the dirt, right?
And they wanted to get rid of it, so they're like, yeah, just take it. And we saved about 30 or 40 truckloads full of dirt just to use on our lot. And that's something that's like, all we had to do was ask.
That's creative too, because most people wouldn't think to do that or wouldn't have noticed, right?
Yep.
It's also kind of lucky. Like, what are the odds that they...
So we've actually done this more than once. So
okay.
We have a little bit of experience doing this. So every time we get a new contract for a new ground-up development, we drive the whole area and look for places either to dump dirt or to take dirt from.
Okay.
Because more often than not, there's somebody else in the area who's either digging a detention pond or somebody who needs dirt, and we have to dig a detention pond.
Right.
So it works both ways. So it's really good to, I guess, know what everybody's doing in the surrounding area.
Okay.
Because we can benefit from the same vendors. We could benefit from product, material, and that end of the day, that's all cost saving to the client.
Right. And so they're happy too because you save them money.
Yeah.
And then you also save probably time because you can just grab the dirt from wherever.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you're definitely I love the scrappy entrepreneur where you're trying to find how to save costs in the system no matter how successful your company is. Because a lot of times people become successful and then they start becoming wasteful.
Yes.
They say we have the money and then they wonder why their profits are dwindling because their costs are shooting up the roof.
Absolutely. And so that's just the type. I guess that's just my nature. I like being outside on the field, knowing what's going on firsthand.
Hands-on, yeah.
Very hands-on. And that's really how I source most of everything in my business, right? Just by being hands-on. And then we have people on the back end who don't like to be hands-on.
They're more
in the office,
spreadsheets.
Exactly, and they love, that's what they like to do. So that's what we, I guess that's why we place them in those positions, because that's where they excel.
Yeah, and you got to play to your strengths too, right? And that's why they do personality tests for, are you the sales personality?
Yeah.
If you don't like to talk to people, sales is probably not the best thing, right? If you like to text and stuff, maybe you're better at the social media updates and posting the captions. But of course, for entrepreneurs, you want to try to level up in all areas. We talked about that, getting in front of the camera, getting uncomfortable. So I think it's a little bit of doing what you're good at, but also trying to work on some of the areas that you'd like to get better at as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Exactly what you said.
So is there anything else, I guess, you want to talk to the audience? I mean, any tips, any learnings that you found, any way that people can shortcut their way to success? Maybe not shortcut, because I know there's no shortcut for the work, but anything that probably would have saved you a lot of time if you could give yourself advice when you first started?
I guess there's two things I would tell everybody, and I wish I had this when I first came here.
Yeah.
First thing is find a mentor who's in the same space as you want to be.
100%.
Right? So find somebody who's been there, done that. Tag along, even if for free. Work for them for free if you have to for a couple of months. There's a lot of value. There's a lot of knowledge in that. That's something that I think would have saved me personally a lot of time and effort in growing my business. I think it would have grown much more if I had a mentor.
To shortcut your way to success.
Absolutely. That's one thing. And the second thing is build a team as fast as you can. Find the team, build a team. The path to success is not alone. You know, you need to be able to go there, and you need to be able to go there with people, like-minded people, right?
Right.
And that makes the process actually more fun as well, you know, because doing everything alone, man, I'll tell you what, it gets lonely very quickly.
It does. I just had lunch with another entrepreneur, probably, I think this past weekend, and he was telling me he's a Greek guy, came over here recently a few years ago, studied at U of H, and he's got a facial technology, like facial recognition software. And he was telling me he's working till like 11 p.m. all the time. He's the only one at his office. He's got a team, but I guess he's the only one putting in those kind of hours because he's like, I guess, one of the only founders. And he was telling me it's a very, very lonely road because Saturday night when you're working at 9 or 10 p.m. and you don't have anyone else there, who do you talk to? Who do you reflect with, right? So I think the importance of a team is something a lot of people underestimate.
Absolutely. And it's the experience as well in having a team.
Yeah.
Having different opinions, having different mindsets, you know, having just someone to talk to.
Right, to bounce ideas off of.
It definitely, I think, elevates your thought process.
That's been one of the biggest challenges I think I've had in Houston is trying to find these like-minded people. I recently started a mastermind group with some friends, and that's been a breath of fresh air because every 2 weeks we meet. They all read the same books I read. They listen to the same podcasts, and we've all got different businesses that we talk about. But just having that kind of connection with somebody who's interested in similar things has been a great way to relieve stress and to brainstorm and mastermind versus just Googling or watching YouTube videos all alone at home in your office.
So one thing I do religiously is I take advice from people who I want to be like.
Right.
So, and if I have to track them down on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, harass them, find a way, you know, a friend, a mutual friend, any way to get in touch with them, I'm going to do that. Even today, right? I have a business. I have multiple businesses, but if I need to sit down and talk to someone, I'm going to find a way to sit down and talk to that person.
Right.
And just get, even if I have to pick their brain for 30 minutes, you know, that is, because if I want to be where that person is in the next year or two, I need to do exactly what that
they're
person
doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And those are the kind of people that I want to surround myself with.
So what's an example of a way you would get in front of somebody who may have a gatekeeper? Like if you see someone you want to be like and you know they're doing well and you don't have any mutual friends, what would be your strategy to get your foot in the door?
Strategy would be find their Twitter account and just keep harassing them until, you know...
until they accept a coffee meeting.
Either that or Facebook has worked very well for me in the past.
Awesome.
Believe it or not, I actually met a person recently through Facebook, and we closed a multi-million-dollar transaction over Facebook.
Did you meet in a Facebook group or just a mutual friend?
This person reached out to me on Facebook Messenger and said, "Hey, I have this deal. Why don't you come take a look at it?" And I never called the person. I actually said, "Okay, send me the address." They sent me the address.
Met them out there.
I didn't even meet them out there. I went there on my own. They sent me all the comps, all the rent roll. We literally went through the whole process, and I met them at the title company last day.
And the deal was done.
That's
amazing. The power of social media, it's come such a long way. Now that I recently got my real estate license, they're teaching us, and in my broker, it's like all these old school techniques of calling people and this and that. And I'm telling them, I've done deals too, similar situations where I've done a deal over text, sent the contract, had it signed, never spoke to the person once, and the deal closes.
The power of technology today is just unbelievable.
Yeah, at the push of a button, you could have someone sign by clicking in a certain spot.
And I think the people who embrace technology are the people who are really going to scale quickly.
Yes.
We have a lot of people today, even younger people, who are refusing to embrace technology, social media, the impact of social media.
Right.
I think it reduces their awareness of what's going on in today's, real estate space or any other space, just because they really don't know what they don't know. It's not. That's what it is.
There's so much information out there, and I saw a video, we were talking about impact theory too before. On impact theory, I think Tom had one guest on who was talking about, not using social media and how it's affecting your brain and all this stuff. And some people were starting to comment, like, I'm going to go delete all my social media accounts right now, and I'm going to go walk around in the mountains or whatever.
Right.
Like, it's good to disconnect at times, but I commented on there and I was like, guys, you realize we wouldn't be watching this amazing video if Tom didn't post on social media. And everyone's saying how amazing this video was, right? So I was just saying how contradictory is it that you're saying you're never going to use social media, but you're here commenting on this YouTube video about how it changed your life?
Yeah, there's always haters out there.
There's always haters. People are always going to hate on you no matter what. But the funny thing is that the people who hate the most are the ones who are watching from the sidelines. They're watching every story that you post.
Yeah.
And they're kind of jealous because they're not creating content and they're not taking action towards their dreams.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, that's what I said in the beginning, is just keep your head down, do what you need to do, whatever it is, whether it's your business or social media. Sometimes social media is your business.
Right.
Right?
That's how you get new customer acquisition and everything.
And for me, what I've come to realize is that over the past 60 days, I have had more engagement with investors, clients, you know, potential new businesses, just because of social media.
And video too, like the power of video, people understand you, they can hear your voice, see your face, they know you're a real person versus someone who's just like commenting from a Facebook profile that has no picture, right?
Yep, absolutely. Be present, be there. I recently heard something from Gary Vaynerchuk where he said, if you don't post 25 times a day, you're a nobody. And that's literally what he said.
25. I know, he's like that one extreme of, I feel like I'm a little bit of Gary Vee because I've been posting once a day.
Yeah.
25 a day.
But you know what? I think what he said made sense to me. And he's like, if you did nothing else with your time but just work, you'd be successful in 5 years.
Yeah.
And when he said, I recently heard that at one of his talks, and I totally agree with him.
Because it happened with you.
Yeah, and I mean, there is no other path. If you just spend all your time working, even if it's just for, 3 years, you're guaranteed success. And how many people want success today?
Everybody
Everybody
wants success, but nobody wants to work for it.
I said nobody wants to put in the time, and that's it.
It's true. Wow, that's incredible. You remind me of another friend I recently talked to where his business is on track to do $1 million in revenue this year. And he has a business account for it, but on his personal account, he's never really posted about it at all.
Yeah.
People who haven't kept up with him don't even know that he was the CEO of that company.
Right.
And only now, after 5 years of being in business, he's put on his personal profile that he's the CEO of that company. Yeah. It's incredible.
It is incredible.
Because he kept his head down and worked.
And that's it, and scaling to $1 million or $10 million, the struggle is there, you have to put in the time, you have to do the work. Once you've scaled, and what I like to call is the wash, rinse, repeat system, where you wash and you rinse and then you repeat. The repeat cycle is so easy.
And you just scale to a bigger number.
And then you just scale it to a bigger number. Just add another zero or a couple of zeros behind it, and that's it. As long as you have the system and processes in place, really scaling should not be an issue. The only thing I think that's important is that the business should be scalable.
Right.
I see a lot of people coming into businesses that I really don't think are scalable today and are just on the verge of disruption, in fact.
Absolutely.
And they're like, okay, we want to invest $100,000, we want to get into this business, this is what we want to do. But if you really look at it and look at the macro picture, you guys are like 3 years into getting disrupted by some sort of technology.
Right.
So,
and that's in a lot of industries right now too. Tech is just extremely disruptive.
And guess what? The reason they probably don't know that is because they're not on social media.
Yeah.
Right? Because they don't have that exposure. I don't think you have anything to lose, but you have everything to gain by being present.
And it's so funny to hear when people, especially some of the older people who have a hard time embracing technology, they'll come up with all the reasons it's not going to work. Like Open Door, for example. Yeah. I just hear a couple negative stories about bad experiences with Open Door. But it makes sense. Like people should be able to open the door with their app and see a vacant house. Why do they have to wait for a real estate agent to come with their special key? And so people are like, oh, Open Door's not going to last. And I'm like, yeah, they said that about Uber. And now if I see a yellow taxi, it's like going to the museum.
Absolutely. People, I think, are getting more and more inclusive, meaning more and more introverted automatically with dealing with other people. That
right.
If I can avoid dealing with an actual person
then I will.
Right?
Carvana, all of those apps.
Absolutely. And so, dealing with people is a disruption on its own, I think what's going to happen is eventually we're just going to deal with a bunch of, through our phones, deal with a bunch of technology.
Chat bots and
that's it.
And people love that. If they can get something, like you said, by the click of a button or just texting a chat bot 2 or 3 sentences, they'd rather do that than have to pick up the phone.
Yep.
And I know a lot of people joke about millennials too, saying that the phone that we have today, I think, 5% of the time we actually use it for phone calls. Most of the time it's texting, social media, emails, and we can all look at that on what the usage is on our phones. most of us are spending it on Instagram or YouTube or, I don't know, emails if you send a lot of emails from your personal phone. But I would really encourage you guys listening to go and look at what you're spending your time on. And like Hamza said, if you're spending too much time on social media and scrolling around, you might need to put the phone down and focus on the work.
Yeah, put in the time, put in the time, and you guys will be exactly where you want to be in 5 years, guaranteed. Gary Vaynerchuk said it.
Yes, and then you can start focusing on sharing your story and building your social media presence.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you what, sharing my social media. The experience of sharing social media today for me is so much more fun than it would have been
5 years ago.
I had nothing interesting to say 5 years ago, right? Now that I've built these different businesses, I have so much stuff going on that posting stuff is actually fun, to where it's like, oh wow, look at this, there's something new happening today, let's post this.
Right.
So it's a fun process. I like it. I only started very recently. I only started being active about, I'd say, less than 60 days.
Wow,
my YouTube,
60 days ago. I already saw when I was watching some of his YouTube videos, you already have a couple that have like 2,000 views or something.
Yeah, so I got lucky. I got one video.
That's awesome.
And it was about social media out of all things.
Yeah. Wow. And I'm still working on figuring out the algorithms and the posts, but I think if you're doing it consistently and you're posting a lot of content, you're going to have a few videos that start to hit, and then you're going to start to build your audience, gain some subscribers and followers and all of that.
Yep, so that's exactly what I'm doing. So now that I'm in it, I'm invested in it, I put the time, I'm learning more about it, I'm learning about the process.
And it's fun because you get to focus on your creative muscles as well.
And it's so much fun. Granted that talking to a lens is still a little weird, but it is a lot of fun. The process is, I enjoy going through the process.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, hey, I know it's been a little bit longer than I thought it would go. We're almost here at 52 minutes, but was there anything else you wanted to leave the audience or any motivational quotes that I can attribute to you for the end of the show notes?
If I were to say anything that would add value to you guys, it would be that put in the time, right? There is no substitute. Put in the time. There's no substitute for that. There's no shortcut. There's no hack. If there was, everybody would be successful, right? You have to put in the time. Whatever you guys like to do that. Focus on your strengths, excel at them, become extraordinary at the things you're good at, and let somebody else handle what you're weak at. Because if you were to improve your weaknesses or work on them, you'd only be average.
I love that. Jack of all trades, master of none.
Exactly.
Well, Hamza, it's been awesome having you on here, man.
Yeah.
Where can our listeners go to find you, to follow you on social media and learn more?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram, HTownHamza, or my YouTube channel, which is also HTownHamza. I try to post 3 times a week with entrepreneurial and motivational advice for up and coming entrepreneurs or professionals. And I hope to add value to all the viewers through Instagram and YouTube.
And he's got a lot of helpful, informative information as well, because I guess he's been there and done that and is continuing to be successful. Where I like to think of myself as where you were 5 years ago. I'm kind of documenting the journey, and I'm still, my last episode I was just talking about how I still kind of feel like maybe I need to get a job. Like I'm still figuring out how to stay consistent with income. So I'm more showing the dream as I'm working on it, where you've got the experience and you've actually done a lot of the things that you're talking about now.
Yes.
So I think that's going to really help skyrocket your videos and your views.
I hope that's the case. I will tell you this. I wish I started earlier. I wish I started 5 years ago and documented my journey. I really wish that was time that I could get back.
Yeah.
As far as documentation. Okay. But you know what? It's never too late.
It's never too late. I think that one last quote that I'd like to drop that I heard the other day, it's always a good reminder. They say the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. So obviously we want to kick ourselves and say we should have started this 5 years ago, 10 years ago, but it's never too late to start no matter where you're at in life. So
absolutely.
If you haven't started, get started today.
Get started today.
Well, Hamza, thanks again, man.
Thank you. Thanks, man.
It's been great.
Appreciate it. Yeah, it's been awesome.
Awesome.